No, that's good.
All right, cool.
John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a chilly day here in LA, but I'm doing okay.
Well, now what's chilly for LA?
Man, it feels colder than probably it does in New England. But today, last night I live in the valley. It was frost this morning.
No kidding.
Today it's probably like 40s,
Yeah, well, that's cold.
high 40s. Yeah, it's like our coldest it gets here is like a fall day in New England.
We had 60-degree weather yesterday,
Oh, nice.
and then 25 today with a snowstorm coming.
I heard.
Do you miss that at all?
I do. Look, I'm back east. I'm back in New Hampshire a lot, Boston, just with family.
Yep.
And I dig it, or New York or whatever, or for visits or for works. And I love the snow. I throw my dog and my kid, my son. We go camping a lot, and we try to find some snow up in Yosemite or Big Bear or whatever, just to get out to there. I do. I miss it. Yeah.
Was Londonderry? Is that where
Correct.
you grew up? Correct. Londonderry. And so I think only New Englanders understand ManchVegas. I love that the description was at the beginning of the movie for everyone else.
Right.
Do you have to explain that on the circuit when you were doing the interview circuit? Was that a constant question? Like, what is ManchVegas?
Man, no, and most people don't, I think, even pick up on it if they're not. It's just so foreign to them. They're like, look, I think every town has its own little thing. What I learned in doing the play and in the movie was this: that the more specific you are, the more universal it is, and it's like the specificity is less important than people knowing. Oh, it's a like an inside thing from that area, like every town has. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well,
by the way, I just hurt myself from swearing. I don't know. Is there curse words allowed on this?
Sorry. Yeah, we're good. Go for it. Yeah.
All right, man. No, you never know, and then I'm always like, oh shit.
God knows the movie's full of it.
Yeah, exactly. About half of those swears were written, and the other half were improv by John.
Were they? I'm sure. Small Engine Repair is the movie. I watched it on Hulu, so it is streaming now. You can rent it as well. To be honest with you, it was one of those movies I just kept going past for whatever reason.
Right.
I love the cast, and so there was no good reason why I didn't. I didn't think it was going to be as light as it actually was. So we have like a comedy, thriller, drama, action movie going on here. Tell everybody what the movie is about, which is based on a very successful play that you wrote about 10 years ago.
Yeah, so it's an adaptation of a play. It's like a very gritty sort of story about these three childhood friends who have a night that will change kind of everything. And it gets, it's a twisty, sort of character-driven, heartfelt, gritty, humorous, and sort of heartbreaking piece that sort of has its roots in theater. So it's like about acting and characters and very sort of provocative, complicated, morally gray situations. So there you go.
And like I told you on the email, I'm drawn to movies that are about small towns, about which Manchester basically is, as far as the city goes. It's a pretty small town, tight community, brotherhood, and just really good acting. And this movie checked all the boxes for that. John Bernthal is in this, who we know from The Walking Dead and from Punisher. Did he do the play with you?
He did. So I first became friends with him. We did the play, and this was a late night play with a budget of like $500. My wife was producing the late night series. She produced this, and we just kind of did it on so there was a play right before us, this Cormac McCarthy play called Sunset Limited, and it had a set that I was like, they're like, you can do a late night. Like their show's 8 to 10. At 10 o'clock, if you can devise a set that you can put your shit up without changing the light scheme, the speaker setup, and the general layout of the set, you're good to go. So I kind of had this idea, and we retrofitted it on. But like, there was no frills. I mean, me and John and the other actors are changing in the hallway as people are coming out of that play. We rush on stage. We're all putting all the shit out. And then people just start coming in. So it was very, very like bootstraps thing. So when you do theater, it's akin to like a sports season. Like you just get close to the people you work with, the shared sort of terror of being on stage together. And then in particular, this one, which was like really low budget. And we were like, you know, typically you do a play, you workshop it, you have a preview, you see what's going on. It's like, we didn't have that. We just opened, and it was late night. So the late night plays, we had done like, you know, some real like Adam Rapp plays, some, you know, LaBute, some like Sarah Kane, like really dark, off the wall, fucked up plays. So the late night was always like, let's just, you know, it's not like a sit there and just ruminate. It has to like grip them, because it's late. A lot of them are drunk, you know what I mean? And they're there for like a sort of underground, like edgy good time. So that with that in mind, I that's how I created this play. And, you know, but again, John, I had met at the second reading of the play. We had a mutual friend who had him come, and he did the reading, and he was having some legal issues, believe it or not. It's like kind of a long story. I think he's pretty public about it, but like he was in Venice Beach, like rehearsing, like researching a character he was playing, and he had his dog, this big pit bull Venice, or in Boss. He had these two dogs, and some of these drunks were trying to grab his dog, and he's like, "Hey man, don't do that." And the guy went up to him, and John, who's a boxer, just knocked the guy out.
No kidding. I didn't never
and
heard
that guy like took him to court. And while that court stuff was happening, he couldn't leave LA. So he did the reading. He's like, I really want to do this play. It was leading up to season 2 of Walking Dead. So he wasn't quite, his star hadn't risen the way it is today. And then he you know, he's like, let's do it. And we just kind of connected early on. And he's, you know, one of my closest friends to this day. But
so I'm sure he was quick to jump on the movie then.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's a producer. I mean, he and I had been talking about doing the movie for, you know, years since we did the play, and it was just about timing and you know, certain cosmic cues clicked into place to make us do it, you know.
So the movie's about 3 childhood friends, and like you said, you know, the story progresses and it twists and it turns. It's funny, it's dramatic, it's very tense in moments. Shea Whigham plays your third,
right,
or your second friend, but he rounds out the crew. Packy is a character I think anybody in New England, if you were born and raised here, you know a Packy.
Right. Yeah.
I love that character. Tell me about developing that character. Did it obviously help that you were from New England? All these guys are very New England-esque and very ManchVegas-esque, but Packy seems like, you know, we all grew up with a Packy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the first play I had written that literally took place in my backyard. I mean, I grew up on the Londonderry, Manchester border. My sister lives in Manchester. I was like, that's my, you know, ManchVegas. Like, that's where I had my, you know, it turned 21 and, you know, went to my first bars. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my, my backyard. So I really wanted to write something that I'm like, shit, I don't know, maybe only people that I, you know, from New England will get it. But I wasn't afraid of that. You know what I mean? I'd written other plays that took place in Boston or whatever. Everyone knows Boston is sort of shorthand for that area, written movies and stuff like that. So it was the first time I'd ever written anything that took place in New Hampshire, and was that. And, you know, I just felt I knew these archetypes, and I knew the sort of references and all that stuff. And then, you know, when you're writing, a kind of a cool thing happens when suddenly the characters take on a life of their own, you know. And I had, you know, in this case, I knew the general shape of the play and the narrative. And then I just crafted these characters, and I knew that the most New England thing I knew they could do, which is constantly bust each other's balls, have that element of danger, like it could get into a physical altercation, but underneath it is love. And these guys don't know how to communicate any other way. And that is like beautiful ingredients for like conflict and drama. And I just, you know, you don't want to create characters who kind of get along and agree with each other. So therefore, all 3 of these guys are sort of, it's like take one character and peel 3 different pieces off of them. And that's kind of what they did. And then their voices, they just started to, you know, and then once I had the readings and it was cast, you know, and Bernthal became a dear friend, I just started to lean into him and his personality, or facets of his personality, and just kind of made it work. But Packy to me was always like a very singular literary creation. Like he exists in this play, but nowhere else. And I mean, he was, honestly, I wanted him to be kind of like magical, like a leprechaun, which they talk a lot about. You know what I mean? Like, what if a leprechaun was like, grew up in Manchester and had, you know, a complicated sexuality, a complicated philosophy, a complicated, very, very smart guy who probably, if he was raised in a more nurturing environment, would have been a much different person, and sort of have that inherent beautiful tragedy of him.
And Shea, I mean, I'm sure he brought a lot to that character
Oh God,
himself.
yeah.
Just he's an amazing actor.
He's incredible.
Um,
And, got to know him really well. And to that point, you start writing and leaning into the actor and their energy and their stuff. We rehearsed this movie like a play. You have to, when you adapt something, you have to be sort of, you can't treat it like it's the Bible. You have to be willing to fuck with it. So, we sat down at a table, John and Shea and I, for like, months before we started shooting, because we didn't know when production was going to happen. And I just did rewrites and, pick up little lines and Shea-isms and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, that guy is like incredible. He's an incredible human being, but as an actor, he is like, it's like a machine. You put this stuff into it and it processes it, and this like beautiful art comes out. It's incredible.
and the cool thing about these characters, especially with John and Shea, Terence, who John plays Terence, you feel like he's a certain character. You're following that character. You're like, oh, I know this guy. Same with Shea. But the two of them, like Shea is a pathetic character at first. He's the one that's getting knocked around by you guys. You guys are bigger. You're picking on him. He turns out to be kind of the savior. He's the smart one. He's the social media guy. He surprises you about halfway through. And in turn, Terence, who you think is this suave, slick ladies man guy, ends up being a little pathetic. And there's one scene, I don't want to give too much of the movie away, but there's that one scene in the bar room with the flashback where you're like, oh my God, this guy is kind of sad.
Well, the whole idea with him, and that again, like, that's, to me, I love actors. I'm an actor, and it's working with them and really creating these characters together. The whole thing was, how can I create a world and create characters that are going against the grain? And, man, I feel like this is my backyard. It's like, you're from where you're in Lowell,
Milford, Mass.
Oh, Milford. Yes. Okay. So like, these are people we know and we get, whereas the broader, movie world, theater world, or whatever, they look at these characters and they're like, oh, they have preconceived notions. I had not seen many plays that really represented the working class or sort of the experience that I knew, and wanted the movie to be an extension of that, to show these people as they're like flawed, multi-layered, complicated. They're not just servicing the plot, like they're living characters and the nuance of it. And it's like, look, I didn't have, $100 million to make this movie. So my special effect is the acting and the characterization and the writing. And so therefore you just make these really complicated characters who, I'm asking a lot of an audience to spend time with them, and especially sort of the dark places that they go, want you to feel like they're real people,
Frank, your character is a complicated character as well, with many different layers. You're rooting for him. You're angry at him. You're, you want the best, obviously. He's got the crazy ManchVegas ex-wife.
Yeah,
is amazing. Jordana Spiro plays. You'd recognize her from Fear Street recently, and she was also in the first season of Ozark and My Boys, her own comedy show. But she was fantastic in this. That was a character that just jumped right out of the screen.
Well, I mean, the fun thing about the movie, the play, there are no women. It's just the three guys and then the kid. And in the movie, it was like opening it up and adding these really rich, the same sort of concept philosophy of making these complicated, flawed, multi-layered men. I did that for the women as well, who just, even the small roles, they just pop to your point. So it was like very much having this character who is like, you think these guys are rough and they're tough and they're doing this, and she comes on and it's like, she's a fucking, hurricane. And really to sort of wear the, one of my favorite movies is LA Confidential. And I love how that third act of that movie is like these disparate characters finally getting together and working together. And I really wanted to have that structural sort of building block. And that was about making her come in. And I mean, hopefully you don't expect that to happen. And then suddenly,
absolutely not.
Ingredient.
Yeah. And Sierra Bravo, of course, if we're talking about the full cast, we can't leave her out. She's blowing up right now. Wayne was such a great TV show and a teacher. And then she was also in Cherry with Tom Holland.
Yeah.
But she's an amazing actress.
Oh, dude, the best. She's incredible. And, that's such a tricky character and so hard to cast. You have to find the right crystal. And I I saw so many wonderful actresses who blew me away. That category was like an embarrassment of riches, but you have to have that really specifically modulated strength and vulnerability, you know, without giving away the plot, why it's so crucial. She is the heart of the movie. If you don't, if you don't love her and see the beauty of her and the complexity of her and the promise of her, then the movie won't work. And, you know, you find Sierra and she encompassed all that and then more. So it was like really, you know, I attribute the movie really, really firing on all cylinders because of her and what she brings.
And Spencer House as Chad, who's the villain of the story. And we shouldn't probably talk about him too much because that's going to be a big that'll be a big reveal of the twists. So
yeah, but I mean, look, I think to that point is like his character is a complicated guy as well, and it's more like he's a product of his environment and some bad decisions he made, and all of that stuff being amplified by this tool set of social media, which is sort of the you know, the Hitchcockian element of it. But yeah, like I don't try to write characters as good or bad. They always have to have a facet of just humanity to them.
Yeah, and he does. He takes a turn, and you see a different side of him, and then he takes another turn, and you see another side of him.
Totally.
But that's the exciting thing about the movie. So social media is very predominant, and 10, 11, 12 years ago, it was still pretty predominant, but not as predominant as now. Was the play based around that whole social media storyline?
You know, interestingly enough, it a lot of, you know, structurally it was the same thing, but it was Foursquare in the play, which was coming out, and the play came out in 2011 or whatever. Foursquare was kind of this new thing.
By the way, that came out of Medway, Mass, which is right next door. I know the dad of the kid that invented it. Yeah, made a lot of money off that.
Oh, I'm sure, because then like Facebook and Instagram, all the tagging technology is all built out of that. But I mean, when that initially came out, the guy who ended up a director who I had worked with on a couple of things, who directed the first staging of this, he would be like, I remember he was dating this girl, and she was like, oh, I can't meet. And he's like, I just saw she fucking checked into Foursquare at this restaurant, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's how he found out she was like, you know, whatever. So I remember thinking, Jesus, I didn't even know what that technology is. So I had it in the play as like a Hitchcockian device. Well, you know, a lot happened culturally since the play, the play is still being done, coincidentally, you know, all over the world it's been done. And people look at it now as a period piece, you know, of the technology of that time. But in the movie, wanting to make it sort of more of the moment, you know, Instagram and all that stuff is the same sort of plot mechanic, but it's more ubiquitous now than ever. The play, people would leave and be like, wow, is that a real thing? Now it's like you talk about Instagram and stuff, and it's so cutting edge and of the moment. And, you know, look, in 5 years, people would watch this as a period piece because there's some new technology, but the basic concept behind it has just amplified since the play.
Yeah, it teaches us that because of social media, there's a good chance we'll never get away with anything.
Right. Well, you know, that's the
dangerous
whole thing, right? or just like, you know, again, it is asking. I mean, look, I try not to necessarily make that sort of, you know, get off my lawn, old man theme behind it. It's not, you know, look, but it's saying, look, there are inherent dangers. The sort of, you know, the bad shit can get amplified with social media. Like a lot of these sort of more universal themes that the movie is exploring are amplified through social media.
I also want to let people know that you wrote the film adaptation of the book Stronger about Jack Bauman. He was in the Marathon bombing, and there's a great story. Jake Gyllenhaal plays him. Another great these movies are universal, obviously, but close to home for us here in New England. And like The Town and like Good Will Hunting, this is just another great one for that category. Tell me about writing that film adaptation from a book dealing with real life events, very touchy subject, and it's a very heartwarming story. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, that was my first big sort of studio project, and coincidentally, I got hired off of that because of the Small Engine Repair play sample. People read that, and they were, you know, it was right around a time where you know, now there's a lot more playwrights working in film and TV, but then it was a little bit newer. Like, you know, people weren't reading plays. So they read that. And, you know, and I had a couple other plays that took place. I have another play called Lost Girls, which is sort of the female companion piece to Small Engine Repair. So these couple of things were just getting interest. And then the producer, Todd Lieberman over at ManchVegas, he had gotten an excerpt of the book, and he had gotten the book rights before it was even published. And he's like, read this excerpt. What do you think? And it was just a small piece of it. But I'm like, I grew up 20 minutes away from Chelmsford. My sister worked there. I'm like, I know the area. I'm like, I know these guys. So then I read the whole book, and, you know, it had a lot of promise. So I think Jeff and Brett, the writers of that book, did a great job. But the reality is the book came out too soon. I mean, he lost his legs in April. By that following sort of winter, the book was out. It was like an airport book, and it was just sort of overly optimistic. And I was like, what's going on between the lines? So in meeting him and doing all that research with him after I got the job, I spent a lot of time there and started to see, okay, there's a story beneath the book, which is,
he's a complicated character.
Very complicated. And the book, I think, was trying to him sort of, hey, I'm okay, guys, look at this thing. And I took a lot of stuff from the book, but it was really in interviewing them and spending time with those guys and going out drinking with them and going out to, you know, to Lowell and getting into, you know, those guys, you know, it's fist fights and shit. And it was like really getting to know who the characters were, that I was like, oh, this is there's another story here. And the story is this basically this family who's just not really cut out for this. And I mean, like, I could have written a movie or a play about that family, a kitchen sink drama, and I got the dynamics. And then you add this thing in this sort of concept of like, not just Boston, but the whole country wanting him to be a hero. Like, he's healing us, you know? And this guy was in massive pain, and he was not ready to deal with his own pain, never mind anyone else's. And that's sort of his story, where he eventually, he takes on his own suffering. And I felt an immense amount of pressure, because I was like, this is my backyard. Like, I don't want to fuck this up. I'm from the area, you know? And, yeah, it was tough. And, you know, I wrote the script, and I ended up working with David Gordon Green a lot. I sort of shadowed him on the set. That's how I incorporated a lot of that stuff in making my own movie. But I you know, had a great time with him and seeing it. It was very weird, but look, they shot it all there, and it was all the regular folks. And, you know, I mean, there's some really good writers I think could have written a really good movie, but like, I don't think anyone could have gotten a lot of the specificity if they hadn't, if it wasn't me growing up in that area.
And what about Lost Girls? Are we going to see a movie?
I don't know. You know, it's a lot less, the stakes are a lot less cinematic, but maybe. I mean, it's a lot more of it's a lot more theatrical.
Yeah.
You know, Small Engine Repair, the stakes in the play are very cinematic, you know, life or death, violence. And Lost Girls is a little different. I think someday, maybe. Yeah.
Who's your dream cast for, let's like, it's you said it's mostly all female. Who would be your dream cast?
Oh, geez, I don't even know. I mean, it's hard to say, because I wrote it for my wife. She did it in LA for a year. She's actually in Small Engine Repair. She plays Dottie, which was fun.
Is your daughter as well?
My daughter has she's like the babysitter for like a second, you know. Okay. And my daughter's a very accomplished actress, but that's all I got her in that one. It's not really a kid movie. And then my son plays the little boy who's trying to sleep. Okay. And by the way, like, you know, Bernthal's kids were in the movie. His two boys get cut out of it, but that's his daughter in the opening scene.
Oh, wow.
And his dogs, you know, are in it. And we dedicated the movie to Boss, who was his pit bull, who passed away right after the movie finished. But he was like, every day when we did the play, he was like in the backstage. He was like the best dog ever. And you know, he was like our mascot. But you know, I wrote that play for my wife. In essence, I pulled the character from Lost Girls, and that's who she plays in the movie. It's sort of like a component of that. So it was kind of cool. So, I mean, I don't know. It's Jesus, that's a good question, but I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know if that's the next one I'm going to do or not.
Yeah. But, any ideas that you can share that you might be working on?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm working on a ton of shit, some cool stuff. But you know what's funny, man, is like, I'm so paranoid about what I'm allowed to talk about. Like, I'm happy offline, I'll tell you everything, but like, I never know. you know, I was doing press for the movie, and I was talking because I'm working. It's public. I'm working with Scott Silver on the Hulk Hogan movie, and
wow.
I just people were asking about that, and I was like, oh yeah, it's really cool. Blah blah blah. I don't know what's going on with COVID and all this shit. And then like these, I don't read. I try not to read reviews or press or anything like that. It just gets in my head. Like I'm very sensitive to that stuff. Like I don't want. There can be some of that stuff that's very educational and really good, and I think there's some incredible writers on that. But like to our earlier point, there's so much noise on the internet that I don't think is indicative of what you really do. Like I create stuff for an audience, and but anyway, I know that little thing I said in an interview suddenly spawned all these little blogger fucking things. So like I don't know, man. I'm always paranoid. Sorry, speaking of my dog, he just opened the door.
What kind of dog do you have?
I got a pit bull and then a shepherd pit bull mix. Two rescues.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, you're
but no, cool stuff. I got movies going and you know, I'm dying to get back into the theater, but obviously the theater has been kind of dark, and I have much more momentum in features, and I'm developing a couple TV shows, so it's all good. And you know, Small Engine Repair, the film has kicked open a lot of doors as a director, and I'm really, really excited to direct another movie. I mean, we didn't really get into it, but I pretty much released Small Engine Repair in the worst window of indie film release history in terms of the pandemic. And we were supposed to premiere at South by Southwest, and then it was canceled. And then we just never had that festival boost in that thing. And then we released in the theaters on, you know, quite a few screens, but then Delta hit and it kind of, you know, fucked us. But it's finding an audience now. That's why I'm really psyched about Hulu. Like so many more people are seeing it, which is great. But it's opening up, you know, a lot of things. I have a lot of opportunities for what to do next. So it's just about finding that right thing. You know what I mean?
And I hear you're celebrating a birthday soon, a big milestone.
Oh, yeah. I get a couple months. Let's not bring that up.
I have a week.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I do. I'm celebrating in Nashville. So going with my wife and 10 friends.
Are you really? Have you ever been there?
I've been during the day for a couple hours, but I have not spent much time there. Love it there, though.
It is awesome.
So was LA. I was out in LA. I was in Long Beach. My son is out there right now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he was trying to get into movies, but now he's focusing on music. But yeah, he's living the LA dream right now.
He lives in Long Beach, though?
No, he plays in Long Beach. He's he's in Hollywood right now, North Hollywood.
Yeah.
But so that was a nice trip. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to
Nashville's one of my favorite cities.
Is it? Yeah. Where should we go? What should we do? Give me some highlights.
I mean, look, I can just sort of paint a picture of what I loved about Nashville. Okay. It's like that main strip. It's like one saloon, one bar after another with live music, and I had like rockabilly country here, and then it was like folk here, and then it was blues here, and then it was like it was just music, live music. Electric. Go in, have a beer, listen to the guy. Yeah, that's awesome. And then it's just doing that bar crawl, but every stop had some beautiful fucking live music that was just like, man, I loved it. And it was good food, good people, but it was really just the music. Like you can breathe it. It's like being at a film festival, except it's music every day.
Yeah, and many of us in the group are musicians, so
there you go.
It's gonna be great. Awesome.
Yeah. There's nothing like that, and yeah, man, you'll have to let me know how that goes, because I'm trying to think. The last time I was there was right before the pandemic. Actually, it was like 2.5 years ago.
I went last year during the pandemic, which was weird. There was still some music here and there, but the streets were empty, and it just didn't feel like what Nashville should be.
I mean, I think you'll be okay now. It seems like things are changing quite a bit fast, because like who wants to, you got to sit in a bar and drink your beer and watch music. Who wants a mask?
Exactly. Yeah, we just lifted them in mass. It's a little lighter now. Kids don't have to wear them in school, and which, I mean, 2 years of this is incredible.
I don't, man. I don't know. Like, I mean, I feel like we've all been affected by that. I feel like we've all gotten a little weirder and a little bit stranger. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's okay especially for, artists like us. It's okay to get a little stranger and a little odder.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, I'm just so social. It's like, I miss it. I miss just seeing people's faces. Like, I got a younger son too. And it's like, he spent the last 2 years with a mask on, and it's like, we'll see how
that's all he knows.
Yeah.
That's so weird. What do you miss most about New England and Manchester?
I mean, it sounds corny, but it's just the seasons.
Yeah.
It's setting your body clock to that. I miss the people. I just love, like, I'm from there. It's interesting because, like, all I ever wanted to do was leave and go to New York City or LA. And then I just keep going back because I'm like, I, for better or for worse, I spent so much of my formative years there. I just get it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's carved into me. So, it's just part of who you are. So, I meet somebody from the Northeast, especially where we grew up, and I'm just like, we get each other in a way. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
I get it. I get how it works. So, yeah, I like, I love the seasons. I miss skiing up there. I miss being closer to my family. I just miss, the smell of the fires and of the fireplaces and, all that stuff, the places I like to eat. You know what I mean?
I love New Hampshire. I was up there well, actually, I was in Portsmouth for 3 years and Concord for 3 years before that, working
Oh,
in
really?
radio. Yeah. So both awesome cities.
No, both of those are great. My parents lived right outside of Concord for a a while, and
okay.
now, yeah, we go to Portsmouth all the time. I have a lot of good friends there. Did you know this Veterans and Performing Arts out there? I'm in tight with those guys. They're
Are you?
a theater company of, like, veterans, and they actually did small engine repair.
Yeah, that's Portsmouth is a day trip for us, or an overnight trip with friends.
Yeah, it's just great, man. It's just so fun, and yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, hey, John, thank you so much, man. It was great talking to you. Great meeting you and getting to know you.
Absolutely.
I got to tell everybody, you got to watch this movie because I think there's something in it for everybody. And don't get too nervous if you're skittish about things, because I'll just leave it at that. Just keep at it, keep with it, watch it to the end. I think you really enjoy it. But there's comedy, there's the great storyline about brotherhood and small towns and hometowns, and there's a lot to be said about a character who is dealing with childhood friends. That's a theme in some of the greatest movies.
Yeah.
Because there's so much history that it brings out the character as adults and makes it either more complicated or whatnot. And this movie has all that. But I really enjoyed it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you spreading the word, man, and keep in touch.
All right. Take care, John.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.